Guys, welcome to the First Responder Playbook. I'm joined by Brandon Day today. Usually I try to give a little bit of an intro, but he has such a awesome background that I'm not going to do it justice. So Brandon, I'm going to let you give your own introduction today.
Okay. Well, first of all, thanks, Brent, for having me here. It's a pleasure. And off the bat, if you do hear some screaming in the background, those would be my 9-month-old triplets, and they are hungry at the moment. So,
That's fine.
yeah, feel like a first responder all the time at
Yep.
home right now.
Oh, I
Yeah,
can imagine.
yeah. Um, So anyway, yeah, my background, it started in athletics, and I played sports, all the sports, as many as I could growing up. And I ended up going to college to play football, and had a great career, great time, won some national championships, ended up on the cover of Sports Illustrated, was an All-American. And although I had a fantastic time, it left me with some some pain afterward. So I had some injuries. Lucky enough to never miss a down due to injury, but afterwards I dealt with chronic pain for a long time, and that kind of sparked my interest in what I do now. And long story short is I took a little sojourn into independent filmmaking for a bit. And that, really didn't do a lot of great things for my mental health. And
Right.
I fell out of the fitness game, wasn't really taking care of my body. And that led to just more pain. And I was concerned also with where my brain health was heading. And so that really sparked, I hit kind of a rock bottom moment around 2013 and decided to kind of take control of my health again and figure out how to heal myself from this chronic pain that I was experiencing in my neck, my lower back, my knees, my ankles. I was cursed with the quote unquote bad knees and bad ankles. And
Yep.
then I was developing a bad back, right? I just couldn't accept that. So I went on a mission to try to figure it out. And I was also very concerned about not just my mental health, but my brain health more broadly.
Right.
So, fast forward a few years, I got a job as a personal trainer. I worked with some people that were dealing with some heavier issues, which gave me some perspective. And I decided I really wanted to go down that route to help these people get better. So I went and got a master's degree in kinesiology, and I focused on orthopedic rehabilitation. And I built wellness programs for physical therapy clinics for a while. And then I stumbled into this world of applied neurology. And that's when the doors really like busted open for me. Within a very short time, couple months, my chronic pain was gone. My neck pain, back pain, everything gone. And I really started to see changes happening in my brain health, like the brain fog, the behavioral issues, impulsivity, anger issues, mental health issues. They started to slowly but surely dissolve a little bit, and I started to like I was able to kind of feel like myself again a little bit, and actually put in the work in the gym and in my training to get back that capacity and like that athletic kind of body and also mindset, right? That I had been missing for a long time. And within that, there was also a huge defining moment that I can't just gloss over because it's a big part of what I do, which was discovering what flow states are through a book that I read by a guy named Stephen Kotler, and how important and impactful those are for uh, not just performance, physical and cognitive performance, but also mental health. And I'm sure we'll get into this a little bit, but I've worked with a lot of people with first responders and um, veterans of war and others, athletes that develop a little bit of PTSD or a lot of PTSD from certain things that happen, but also from losing access to this state of flow. And that was a huge moment for me and really defined what I would be doing for the rest of my life. So it's a big pillar in my work in my program, which is, the Neuroflow Method that I call it. It's this marriage of applied neurology or neuro training and flow state coaching. So that's kind of the long and short of it.
So I can now say I know two people that's made the cover of Sports Illustrated.
Hey.
As a former athlete, I'm sure you probably know who Sam Bradford is.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oklahoma, right?
Yep. So all me and
Stud.
all my friends were Oklahoma State fans. Went to OSU.
Okay.
Um, and there was a moment, I think it was 2008. Sam Bradford dove into the end zone and kind of got helicoptered in the end zone by the defense, and it made the cover of Sports Illustrated. And you can see my buddy in the background, like along the wall, like just defeated. And so of course, he thinks it's awesome now, but at the time we were like, "Oh, you got to be kidding me, not again!" And so that's awesome that you got to make Sports Illustrated. Like
Yeah, thank
that's
you.
something you'll always remember.
For sure. Yeah. It was a
So
wild moment.
so as a college athlete, especially in football, it's such a heavy contact sport.
Hmm.
Um, you kind of said that you had the bad knees and the bad ankles. What do you think was driving that mindset that you weren't the one that got beat up by the sports, like, and it was just more of a genetics issue? Like,
Mm,
what made you think that originally just had that mindset? Was it just being, trying to push through it, or um,
that's part of it. Yeah, certainly. I think in the culture of football, hockey, MMA, these big kind of more violent sports, and I would put all first responder positions in those. Let's just call those all the same sports. Like they're all
Yep.
similar.
Yep.
The major difference is that my life is not really in danger so much,
Yep.
maybe a little bit, I mean,
Right.
things do happen,
Right.
but yeah, big caveat there. I'm not trying to say that playing football is like going out there and fighting fires or putting your life in danger as a police officer. Like that's a different thing.
Right.
But the mindset is similar, right? And a big part of that is like push through pain. Um, you know, pain is weakness, leaving the body. We've heard all the sayings.
Yep.
And so there's that mindset and culture that's kind of baked in. And there's also the lack of awareness around the root cause of some of these issues. And so in my case, yeah, I did the PT, I did the chiro stuff when I would sprain my ankles, and I was just told I had weak ankles. They weren't stable. So I got to go get on this balance thing and work on my ankle proprioception and do these things. And I did those things, and they helped a little bit, but I would continue to injure myself. And the knee pain was the weird one, the knee pain and the back pain, because there wasn't really any injuries.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where the thought process, because nobody could explain it to me, PTs, the doctors, nobody. They're just like, well, maybe, does your dad have bad knees too? It's like, well, not really, but I don't know. So I'm just going to be this way forever. And that's kind of what we were, relegated to, was just this acceptance of this life of pain because there's something wrong with you structurally, and you were just kind of born with it. And you
Yep.
could try to fix your, muscle imbalances and do the icing and the rice method and all that kind of stuff, and it would be beneficial for a short time, but then those type of things would always come back. And so that's just kind of like it's I don't know if cop out is the right word, but it's kind of an excuse for
Yep.
lack of awareness and the knowledge around what is or an underlying cause of those things. So that's where the mindset comes from. And it's a mindset and a belief that I, in my work, get the pleasure of reframing and changing for people on a daily basis.
Yep.
And I love doing that because that gives people hope. It's like, oh, my knees aren't jacked up for my entire life. I don't have a bad back. Okay, I can actually do something about it. That's really empowering. right? And so I love helping people see that.
That's awesome. I actually that's where I was leading to was that it is also very prevalent in the first responder community, whether it's physical health or mental health. It's pushed through it. It's not get help and figure out what's going on. It's just pushed through it. It's slowly getting better, but we still got a long ways to go. And I'll never forget that. Like I would say, probably until about 2 to 3 years ago was the first time that like in Oklahoma at least we're required to get 2 hours of mental health every year training. But it's usually stuff that people just get an hour here, an hour there, and they don't really take it seriously. And so I would say maybe in the past 5 years is when it finally started catching up a little bit. And people started taking that more seriously, just as much as your physical health. And so, like, those two really go hand in hand a lot of times. If you're beat up physically, then it's going to drag down your mental health and vice versa.
Here's the way I think about it: 1 to 2 hours a year of mental health training is akin. I see it as no different than 1 to 2 hours a year of physical training.
Yep.
Right? It's unfortunate that it's taken a long time to kind of get there, but I'm really happy to hear that it's at least improving. And the people that I know, that the people that are seeking me out are generally a little bit more attuned to it.
Right.
Maybe they've been through some shit. They probably usually have, right?
Yep.
By the time they've got to me. But they're more aware of it. So I don't see the full picture of the whole thing like you do. But man, it can't be understated how impactful just a little bit of awareness can be around your own thought processes and the processing of the things that y'all see every day.
Yep.
It's a mental fitness game. And what I do is a little bit different. I do a lot of mindset coaching, especially around the flow state stuff. And there's actually some pretty cool research from the Department of Defense and DARPA around flow states and PTSD for veterans specifically that they've worked with. Wild, cool stuff. So really impactful there for mental health. But the neuro approach is it's a little bit more of a bottom up kind of approach. The buzzwords these days are things like nervous system regulation. And it's a buzzword because it's correct, like it's right. When you're dysregulated, you don't get to think very clearly. This like
Right.
big beautiful brain up here that is thinking and makes decisions. When you're dysregulated, or when you have like a trauma response or something like that from some PTSD, that brain just shuts off.
Yep.
And now you're just stuck in like survival mode, quote unquote. And that's real stuff. Like that brain doesn't have language. You can't talk your way out of that. The way I say it is you can't mindset your way out of survival. And so that's where neuro training from the bottom up can be really helpful. Inputs to the body, inputs like breathing, breath work, even vestibular work, vagus nerve stuff, visual work. These input systems are the language of the body and the language of the survival brain. So that's what they're really, really helpful in that kind of mindset or mental health kind of work.
Awesome. Can you kind of explain for just like most people, like what that applied neurology is?
Yeah, absolutely. So applied neurology is the intentional and repetitive activation of or training of the nervous system specifically. So it's assessing and training the nervous system and the brain intentionally and specifically. Just like we would train the body, the muscles, the connective tissue, the fascia, the cardiovascular system, your heart, your lungs, your aerobic system. We can train the nervous system and the brain the same way. We give it the right input and then we add on repetition and intensity, and your brain changes. Your nervous system adapts. That's what applied neurology is. So this stuff's been around for quite a while. Things like vestibular rehab or training. It's been in the physical therapy world or clinical vestibular rehab for a long time. There's a whole field of study called neurooptometry or behavioral optometry, where you would go in and do eye exercises, right, to improve the movement of your eyes, maybe improve your vision a little bit, maybe improve your depth perception, convergence, all these skills that our eyes need to be able to do. They've been behind, white coats in ivory towers for a long time. And you had to be way far on the dysfunctional scale in order to gain access in there. So what we've done is we've just kind of taken all of that clinical stuff and we apply it to anyone, everyone, right? To get them out of pain if they're in pain, or to improve their performance.
How do you apply that in a practical sense to athletes or first responders or military? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah. So I have a colleague. I'll shout him out. His name's Mike Ox. And he runs, I think his website is visiontraining.com. And he's a firearms instructor. And he works with groups of first responders and training your vision. Training your vision it's kind of easy to see, sorry for the pun, how that can really improve your ability to be accurate with a firearm, right? So that's an obvious one, but maybe not so obvious one is the long distance runner, the athlete that comes to me for knee pain, and then I work with their inner ear in order to absolve their knee pain. That might not be so obvious, right? But there are a couple principles in applied neurology that make that make sense. And one of those is just the fact that your nervous system is just one big nerve, right? It comes out of your brain in the womb and it grows like a spider web, or like the roots of a tree. It comes from one spot and then it just branches out.
Right.
So in that way, because, and here's the other key thing, for pain specifically, pain is an output from the brain 100% of the time. No brain, no pain, right? And I always view like a meme of Homer Simpson.
Right. Great reference, actually.
Yeah. So because the nervous system is just one big nerve, and because pain is always an output from the brain, then I can use any input to affect the nervous system output, right? That's how the brain works. It takes in inputs from the environment, it interprets them. If it's perceiving those inputs as dangerous or threatening, we get an output of protection, pain, anxiety, reduced range of motion, slow speed, slow thinking, brain fog. All of these are protective outputs. For some reason, our brain thinks that they will protect us, right? So if we give a brain under threat a new input that makes it feel more safe, then we don't have to get that protective output. So pain can go away. So in that way, through the nervous system, anything can affect anything. That's the overlying principle for all of it. And one example of that, I mean, you can so that, let's say we got right side knee pain. After a few miles of running, my knee really starts to hurt. It's colloquially called runner's knee sometimes, or jumper's knee is another example. And it's like, there's no injury there, so why are we having pain, right? Well, for some reason, the brain feels unsafe, okay? So I could go do some work on that knee, which is what most PTs or chiros doctors might do. If you're a surgeon, they're going to cut it open and poke around in there, right? Because that's the tools that they have. But if we know that anything can affect anything, then I can go to the opposite elbow and I can move that elbow around. And if that can send the brain information that says, okay, I feel a little bit more safe in my environment because I can feel this arm better. The map that I have is a little more clear. That makes my environment more predictable. I feel safer. I don't need to give you that pain anymore. Okay, now we can be more precise, right? That's called opposing joints, by the way, and it's really powerful for pain relief, right? So you take the joint that's in pain, you go to the opposite side, opposite joint. So knee, elbow, hip, shoulder, ankle, wrist, toes, fingers. And you can move that joint and you can oftentimes get a pretty good reduction in pain because of the connection in the nervous system. And we can be even more precise in figuring out where is the threat coming from. And so because of how the vestibular system works in telling our brain where we are in space and which way we're going, those are questions it's always answering. Where am I at and which way am I going? Right? It's always fighting gravity. If that vestibular system's a little bit off, maybe a head injury, maybe a medication caused problems in there, or a virus, those can affect your vestibular system. If it's a little bit off, then after a while, the brain is like trying to process it. It's taking more energy than normal because it's a little bit off, right? And so that extra energy at a certain point, it's like getting fatigued. It's like this vestibular system is not functioning great. I don't have pain receptors there, so I don't know what signal to give you. Oh, wait, knee pain works. That'll get you to slow down or to stop running. So I don't have to process this, so I don't feel unsafe anymore. So anything can affect anything because pain is simply an output from the brain. And we can be very targeted with some assessments, some simple assessments on the function of these systems to figure out where is that threat coming from. And if we can remove that threat, oftentimes that pain just is no longer needed, so it'll go away.
That's awesome. Like that's like definitely a game changer. I mean, 'cause
Yeah.
there's so much that like so many doors that can open, not just with athletes, but like first responders and military people, because
Mm-hmm.
they can push a little bit harder or push a little bit longer, or get over something that's bothering them. How you kind of said this was out there for a long time, but kind of hidden in the ivory towers of these academic circles. How did you guys get that information out?
So there's a few mentors of mine and leaders in the space that really kind of took a lot of the clinical research that had been done around functional neurology and things and just started applying them in an athletic sense. And then now there's a big push in the kind of neurosomatic worlds around trauma therapy and emotional regulation and stuff. And some of those people, like some of my direct mentors are Matt Bush and Kathy Mock of Next Level Neuro. That's where I learned all of my education of in applied neurology, and I actually am their lead instructor now. So I teach this through that company to chiros and doctors and first responders and coaches and trainers and anybody that wants to learn it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then, beyond that, there's Z Health Performance and Dr. Eric Cobb. He's a big leader in the space as well. And there's some other companies that are kind of doing the same thing. Neurosomatic Intelligence is one that's more on the trauma side and that kind of stuff. But it all kind of came from, the functional neurology of the Carrick Institute and some of these places that have been teaching it to chiropractic neurologists and functional neurologists and your clinical neurologists. And again, just kind of taking that and just trying it with anybody outside of the clinic and seeing what happens. It's becoming more and more prevalent now, which makes me very happy. I think, in my opinion, everyone has a brain, so we should all know how to use it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so we don't have an owner's manual, but this is about as close as we've got right now. And what's really beneficial in that sense is the ability to get immediate feedback on the inputs that you give to your nervous system. A really silly and simple example that I often use with new clients or in groups is something like smell. And so one of the most powerful tools in all of applied neurology is the ability to assess and reassess the state of your nervous system in the moment. And you can use something as simple as just a range of motion. So if I take my shoulder out to the side, it gets a little sticky. I'm about an inch away from my ear right here. But if I take something that smells really nice, I don't have anything to grab right in my vicinity here. Because smell goes straight into the brain, right into the cortex, right? And it's right side, right brain, left side, left brain. I can affect the state of my nervous system and the activation of my brain with a simple input like this. So we test the shoulder, and I've done this a million times, so I already know which side needs it, but I'll show you both actually. So I'll show you the right side. Nice smell right there. And my shoulder is like completely unlocked. It feels free and totally smooth. I'm hitting myself in the head, right? All that restricted in the range of motion is gone because that input lowered the amount of threat in my system. So my brain just takes off the foot off the brake pedal and says, okay, we're going to let you perform at a higher level now. Okay. Now on the left, I already have more activation over here. So I just made that imbalance bigger and I'm back. My neck just popped. That did not feel great. And I'm back to not quite as bad as it was in the beginning, but it's worse. Can you kind of see the difference there? I'm not
Yes.
Very simple example, but you can use that assessment process with literally any input to your nervous system. So that is a very powerful tool in your toolbox that you can apply to any kind of training. Your physical training, your field training, your firearms training, right? Another example is like ear protection, right? Earplugs when you're out on the range, right? You can test different earplugs and different levels of audio inhibition or excitation and, figure out what the right makeup is for you. You could test different shoes. That's another one that I get asked all the time. Like, I'm a fitness guy, I'm an athlete. I know a lot about feet.
Right.
So clients will ask me, like, what kind of shoes should I get, Brandon? And I'm like, I don't know. Why don't you ask your nervous system? Ask your brain. And so I'll say, go to the store, take a walk in your normal shoes, do your assessment. Take off your shoes, walk around, do your assessment again. Does it change? Better, worse? Okay. Now try on the shoes that you want to buy or you're thinking about buying, walk around the store real quick and reassess. Your brain will tell you whether or not it wants you to buy those shoes based on that reassessment.
That's interesting. And that's very simple, but
Mm-hmm.
like that's something anybody could do,
Yeah,
once they receive the proper information.
exactly.
That's awesome actually.
Yeah.
Um, Tell me the difference between that and like the Neuroflow method. What's the difference there?
Mm. So the Neuroflow method that I've kind of developed is taking, it's a lot more than, well, I kind of put under the banner of applied neurology, all movement science. So all of my previous education and training and experience in athletics, training athletes, in all of my fitness training in the gym and orthopedic testing, everything I kind of put under the banner of applied neurology, because the nervous system controls everything.
Right.
It's the governing system of all the systems. So no change happens in your movement or your muscles or anything without the brain telling it to change. So, my career to this point in strength and conditioning, fitness and athletic performance, and then in physical therapy, orthopedic rehab, and pain relief, with the applied neurology foundation, working directly with the brain and nervous system to change those things. And then that's kind of like, I call it like the two pillars of my program. The Neuroflow Method is this applied neurology training or neuro training, which is everything in the body and training the brain for physical and cognitive performance. And then flow state coaching is the training and the mindset work and the neurobiological underpinnings of what flow states are, and chasing that peak performance state of mind, or state of consciousness rather, because that is our peak state of performance. And so it's kind of the full spectrum. Most people come to me initially in pain, whether that's emotional, cognitive, PTSD, or physical pain. And we take them from in pain to peak performance, which is flow states, right? So I believe that flow states should be the goal, because when you make flow the goal, then you're focused on the process, and the outcome that you want kind of takes care of itself. So every major championship in the world, athletic or otherwise, every incredible and awe-inspiring piece of music or art, those are all a product of flow states. Somebody totally in the zone, so much so that their sense of self goes away. Time disappears, right? It speeds up like crazy, or it slows way, way, way down. In those states, the chemical cocktail that happens in your brain is like the greatest drug on earth, which makes it an incredibly enjoyable experience, which becomes an end in itself. Also said, another way to say it is it's an autotelic experience. That's a term for like enjoying the process, right?
Okay.
So anybody that comes to me, they're like, I want to be the best pickleball player in the world, right? Okay, well, let's break down your sport. Let's get you out of pain if we need to do that. Let's break down your sport and train you like an athlete that wants to be the best at this. And then let's focus on trying to find flow in that, because when you find flow, you also learn like 490% faster any skill. In the knowledge worker realm, we're sitting at our desks at a computer right now, you're 500% more productive in flow. You're going to be like, I think the number was 230 to or 250% more creative for up to 3 days after you're in a flow state. So the effects of this altered state of consciousness are incredibly powerful, no matter what the task is. So again, when we make that the goal, then the outcome kind of takes care of itself. So I take that and the applied neurology, and we marry it into one to really make people, athletes or otherwise, and I think everybody's an athlete, by the way. I should say that. Everyone I train is an athlete, whether they're in a high competitive sport, or they're a chess champion or wannabe, or they're just a weekend warrior or a first responder who doesn't play any sports but just wants to be better at their job. They're athletes. Right. We're all athletes. We're all playing the sport of life.
Yeah, you're trying to master your craft.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're playing the sport of life, and it's a contact sport, so we should be prepared. So I train everybody as if they are an athlete. And so we take that type of training and layer in the flow state coaching in order to really take somebody from where they are to like consistent peak performance over the long term.
That's awesome. So how like if somebody wanted to like get this the coaching and like everything in between, like how do they start that process?
So unfortunately, most people find me after they've been through all of the hoops in our traditional kind of system, which, you know, I think I can speak for the whole kind of neuro trainer community when I say that we're trying to change that. I think that neuro trainers, like physical trainers, personal trainers, and coaches, and I think they should be the front line kind of people that people go to first before they go see doctors and stuff, right? Doctors should be the last resort, I think.
Right.
Pharmaceuticals, psychiatry, that should be the last resort, right? Not the first place we go.
Yep.
So, you know, unfortunately, a lot of times people see me that way. And that's okay, right? I love working with those people and anybody, and no matter where they're at in their journey. But we're really trying to spread the word. And, you know, I personally have built a community online that people from all walks of life have come to kind of learn about applied neurology and how to maximize their brain function and performance and find flow more often in their life and all of these things. And so I have a pretty awesome community online there. And then of course, you know, there's always Instagram, right? And I'm like out there, you know, throwing balls at people and and trying to communicate how brains work online in, you know, 30-second short clips, which can be challenging, Brent. I'm
Right.
not gonna lie, but yeah, we're just out there spreading the word as much as we can. Most people come to me through the community, through Instagram or some of my advertising, and a lot through referrals and just word of mouth, and it's a pretty cool community in the neuro world. Once you dive into it, it's a fairly small community at this point, right? So people kind of know each other, and I have a whole list, a whole network of neuro trainers that all have different specialties, right? I specialize in flow states and athletic performance and pain relief, but I've got, you know, friends and colleagues that specialize more in nutrition and metabolics, or in trauma and somatic healing, or vision training, like Mike Ox that I was talking about earlier. So even within the neuro community, there's going to be more specialization. And at this point in my life and in my career, I personally probably wouldn't work with anybody in a coaching capacity unless they were a neuro-informed trainer.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So two things I think that you would run into with first responders.
Mm-hmm.
What's the cost of like something like that? I think that'd be the
Yeah.
first thing.
Yeah. So great question, because, you know, neuro training sometimes can feel out of reach when you first hear about it, because it's like,
Right.
it seems like so specialized and things. And it's true. And, you know, it's mainly more costly in general, just in general, because of the background that most neuro trainers have and because of the results that they get. You know, so and here's kind of one of the ways that I kind of talk to potential clients and people thinking about it, is I usually ask, okay, so you've had this back pain for how long? No, 10 years. And then I ask, okay, and what have you done so far to try to help it? Well, I've been to physical therapy. I've done chiropractic. We did massage. I get a massage every week. I've done this, this, and this, and then we start to add it up. Now, how much have you spent on all of that so far? And it's like, well, insurance covers most of it, but I still, have to pay my copays, and most people are spending $10,000 to $20,000 over the life of this injury or pain to get it fixed. And it's like, well, okay, if I could, and I'm not, I'm not about guarantees, right? I don't do that. I don't play that game.
Right.
But just based on my experience and the statistics that, I personally know, and with my colleagues and some of my mentors, right? If we can, have a pretty like 80 to 90% chance to get rid of this pain within 2 to 3 months, is that worth, just throwing a number out like $5,000? Would you pay $5,000 if you knew that pain was going to be gone? And
Yep.
most of the time, they're like, hell yeah, of course. Right. The real question is like, do they trust you? Do they actually believe it? Right. And that is a different conversation. But there are all levels of neurotrainers as well. I charge a pretty good amount, but I work one-on-one with people, and I take them through a process and a method that has been working really well for a lot of people for years.
Yep.
And I've developed that over time and started trying to perfect it, right? And I also, don't work with a lot of people, because I also have a community that I have a free community where somebody could go in and they could teach themselves just by watching all the videos. You could go in there and just stare at my ugly mug for like 100 hours and learn so much about neurology, fitness, nutrition, mindset, flow states, all of it. And then I have a paid community as well. That's a subscription, monthly subscription. It's not a lot. And there are a bunch of people in there that have a more step-by-step process. And then I show up and I give my time, a few hours a week to teach to the group, and they're getting through it. You have different options. There's really no excuse to not at least start on that path to helping yourself. No matter what your profession is, no matter what your income is, there's something for everybody.
That's awesome.
You're paying for speed usually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you kind of touched on it, but here's my second question. Is there a want or a goal of you guys eventually trying to get with insurance and getting that covered, or you guys gonna stay away from that monster?
Well, I'll speak personally
Right.
after working in physical therapy for many years and dealing with insurance and having to kind of hold back on some of the things that I wanted to do, and um, seeing the whole process and just kind of getting, kind of sick of it. I personally won't.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I know some other colleagues that would like to, and some that actually do in certain scenarios, like under the direct supervision of a chiropractor or a PT. Sometimes that can work, or, but not for me. I just,
Fair.
yeah. And there's something I would love to be able to help everyone. And that's why I have a free community. So
Yep.
that anybody can come get help, and help themselves. But I've been through all that, and I personally feel pretty strongly that I enjoy working with people who are heavily invested. Doesn't always mean money, but I have found, just law of averages, right? Insurance companies don't always give rise to the greatest practitioners or the greatest clients sometimes.
Fair enough. Yep.
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
That's why I said I didn't even know if you wanted to tackle that monster eventually.
No, I've tried to wrestle with that monster before, and
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not
So
to it anymore.
if somebody wants to join your community, your free one or your subscription, where can they find you at?
So, um, I host my communities on the platform called School, Skool, and it's an amazing platform. And I really admire the owners, Sam Ovens, and what he's trying to put together there, and Alex Hermosi, if you're familiar with him. He's a big investor in that. He was big in the fitness and gym building gyms world. And, now he owns acquisition.com, and he just buys businesses, and he's a baller entrepreneur.
Right.
They are building something really awesome, and it's kind of like all the best of Facebook groups and teaching platforms with a much more distraction free and focused community aspect of it, built around community. It's gamified. It's amazing. Like, I could go all day about how cool School is. All right. I don't know if 13-year-old Brandon would have ever thought of himself saying those things. But I host both my communities on there. So you can go to school.com/neuroflow performance lab, and you can find it there. Or you can just head to my Instagram. That's where I spend most of my time on social media, talking to people and posting about neurology and flow states, pain relief, movement, that kind of stuff. And it's just at I am Brandon Day, all one word.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to give you some, once we get done recording, I'm going to give you some networking ideas I think would be good for you.
Cool.
But man, I'm excited to have you tonight. Like, this is like, I've got a whole new rabbit hole I've got to go down now.
Nice.
Um, but I'm one of those guys, like, I'm a lifelong learner. So, like, I love to learn new things. And man, you are welcome on here anytime. Um,
Thank you. This was a
you know,
pleasure.
and like I said, it's pretty dang cool to have somebody that was on the cover of Sports Illustrated here. But in all seriousness, like, thank you for the awesome information, and you're welcome back anytime.
Yeah. Thanks, Brent. This was a good time.
I appreciate it. Have a good night.
You too.